If you found this video without watching part 1, the link is in the description, but assuming everyone has seen the first half of this game, I'm going to get right into it. Going into round 6, we know they have a Void Walker and a Blade Dancer super that's charged by this point, and the Striker is probably not far behind. Still, we go for the overtime room. I figured I would lay a tether down on the Blade Dancer, or the Void Walker might super one of us just because he can for an easy kill. What I didn't expect was for me to simultaneously be blinded by a flashbang while JP and Johnny both died to a Nova Bomb and a Blade Dancer. Trying to clutch this round with my tether would have been a terrible decision. This is for a couple of reasons. For starters, even if I wasn't low on health and I was relatively safe, I'm in a 3v1, so the odds are substantially against me to begin with. Also, we stole 2 rounds with 2 supers, whereas they needed 2 supers for 1 round. I made a decision that I was okay with that and just kind of accepted my death. When enemies have supers, you're going to drop rounds. There's not a lot you can do, and that's okay. But the worst thing you can do is waste one of your supers trying to prolong what will be an inevitable round loss. I was okay with how this round played out because I think they made a mistake by burning 2 supers at once. The Blade Dancer might have been enough, in which case they would have only used 1 super. If my tether connected, then they could have followed up with a Nova Bomb. In those cases, they would have only used 1 super, or at least made me burn my tether, both of which would have been better for them than what actually played out. We figured after dropping 2 rounds that we would change up our strategy. I always preach to keep changing your strategy during a game to keep your opponents guessing, especially if what you're doing isn't working. Looking back, however, I failed to identify why the game was tied. So JP got picked, heavy round is whatever, and then we got double supered. None of those losses were because our strategy was bad. So looking back, it was a mistake to not challenge the overtime room this round. Instead, we end up giving them the room and then dying trying to take it back, which is another testament to how crucial the overtime point is on Asylum. This was a poor play call on my part, and I challenged the overtime point in the beginning of the round if I could do it over. Realizing our mistake in the prior round, we rushed the top room and take control. I want to slow this down and give you guys what I think the mentality of both teams were going into this round, because Trials is sometimes like a game of chess and you want to stay one step ahead of your opponent. That makes it important to think about what their plan is so that you can counter it. We know they have a smash ready. The Striker is the least skilled player on their team, and I assume the other 2 were assisting him to a flawless. If it were me, knowing there's nothing to shut down, because the Blade Dancer, JP, and the Stormcaller, Johnny, don't have their supercharged, and the Night Stalker, that's me, doesn't have a mobile super, I'd be sending him in to get a guaranteed kill, and then collapse on the other 2 players as a team. They weren't going to send the Striker in through C stairs because we just team kill him before he could smash, so he was either going to go over the railing or up through B stairs. I tell my team to spread out so he can only get one of us. Let's talk about our side now. I have my super. I also have a rule that you should never lose a game with your super charged. Use it in some way. So I told myself I'm going to tether the first player that challenges us, hoping to get a pick and then at least force a 9th round. Lucky for me, I managed to hit the Striker mid-smash, canceling his super. Low on health, I just kind of panic, drop as many tethers as I can to hold off my enemies. Fortunately, Johnny was able to get JP's res, and then they secured the round. Thinking about their plan and talking about it as a team was a huge factor in winning this round. Going into the final round, they still have a smash, but because I generated a couple orbs and the last man standing dragged the last round out at the end, both JP and Johnny have their super back. That's 2 mobile supers against 1 shutdown super, which is our advantage. When you have an advantage like that, especially in the last round, you should waste no time. We don't need to charge my tether, and we don't need to wait for the point. So I send JP low and Johnny high, both supered. We expected JP to bait the smash, so we sent him in first. I followed Johnny, who went in shortly after JP. The reason we let JP briefly go in alone was because the Striker would be concerned about JP first, so there's less risk of 2 people being killed by the same smash. The Striker actually whiffs his smash, which wouldn't have mattered, and we clean him up quickly to get Johnny as well and flawless. Let's briefly talk about the main points from this video. In the last video we talked about snowballing with supers and using your supers early to get an early advantage. The other side of this is that the other team has supers too. You're going to lose rounds in trials because of supers, so don't waste your super trying to counter an attack that's eventually going to defeat you anyway. That point entirely depends on the situation, so don't use it as a rule of thumb, but try and learn when it is and isn't a good time to counter super. On to strategy. If your strategy isn't working, it's usually a good idea to change things up, but you need to be aware of why you were losing rounds. If you went left 2 times in a row and got wiped out by a super each time, that doesn't mean going left is a bad play. It just means you got dominated by a super. Also think ahead. What supers do the other team have at their disposal? What would you do if you were them? Thinking about their game plan will help you create your own, as you can anticipate and prepare for what's coming up. The last thing I want to do is kind of do a little tally of how we won each round. So the first round we just straight up outgunned them and had a better strategy. That's actually the only round we won because of gun skill. We then capitalized on an early opportunity, which was JP getting his super, and snowballed it into another opportunity, which was Johnny using his super. Then our opponents made a mistake by burning 2 supers at once. I then stole around with my tether, and then we overwhelmed them in the final round with 2 supers after they reloaded. This game is a perfect example of how important supers are in trials, and how you can alter the outcome of a game by optimizing when and how you use your supers. I'm going to make a video or two on super planning and usage at some point, but I hope I covered it enough today that you guys got a good idea about it for the time being. That's it for the video, guys. I put a lot of time into this two-parter, so I'd appreciate if you would murder that like button. As always, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points, and definitely let me know if you learned anything today. I'll see you this Friday for trials. Duking us out.